Because I'm better than you?
It's just basically different.
In a better way.
The triggers are anger and fear.
Those are like the baseline of any woman just existing.
All right?
I do it all the time. When I'm catcalled in the street, when incompetent men explain my own area of expertise to me, I do it pretty much every day. We'll get called emotional or difficult, or I might just literally get murdered. So I'm an expert at controlling my anger because I do it infinitely more than you.
Look at us. Who would have thought? Not me. She-Hulk has been making waves lately, and for all the wrong reasons, right? Namely, the titular character of She-Hulk coming off as incredibly annoying and constantly preachy. We have the makings of a true Mary Sue here, as we are constantly told how much better she is at everything and how her blood is somehow superior to Bruce Banner's and blah 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 blah. Now, I always like to approach shows that get a bit of heat right out of the gate like this one with a bit of tact. Namely, I don't really judge it until I've actually watched it. It's easy to watch some YouTuber or read some thread on Reddit where someone just explains all their bullet points of why they hate the show and don't really kind of highlight any of the good things. They pretty much only emphasize the negative to kind of influence your opinion so that you agree with them and so that you drop a like and you subscribe, etc., etc. That is essentially the YouTube hustle. So let me just say, if you want a strict, just basic opinion baseline from me about how I feel about this show, it's a nay. It is nay, I do not yay about this show. Now, some people have said that the quote target audience unquote isn't me, but I like Marvel, so I'm pretty sure that at the very least I'm a part of the baseline audience, maybe not the audience they really want. Now, I also must preface this by pointing out that I am not a die-hard Marvel fan. I like Marvel, okay? But I will still consistently point out stuff that I think is stupid and it doesn't make sense to me. Fans might scoff and say, in order to understand the depths of She-Hulk's power, you must read the comic book issue number 142-2 where she bench presses a dimension. It's like, if I have to go that far to understand the character, I'm not going to. It's just never going to happen. I'm never going to read all the comics. I'm never going to... That's not a hobby that I'm willing to invest in this late in my life. The whole point of adaptation from comic book to movie or whatever is to get a broader audience, to reach a larger audience of people, and to make it digestible and understandable so that the common, regular person can understand and enjoy the overall point. Now, I understand that the show is specifically trying to address the struggles of women that they endure in the workplace or their day-to-day struggle compared to male counterparts. I get that. But it feels like it goes about it in completely the wrong way and just comes off as, again, it just comes off as preachy. I've always explained that if your tactic of inserting a belief or something into your character is over the top and heavy-handed, you're more likely to push people away than to change how they feel about things or to educate them on some subject they don't understand. You're just going to make them not listen to you. It really makes me think fondly of classical literature that, managed to outline the moral gray area of society in regards to racism or misogyny or sexism or whatever it is. And now it's just kind of like modern attempts to replicate this kind of cultural shift are just never too successful anymore. And I think the reason why is partially because we've modernized to the point where certain mediums just don't translate messages very well, ironically enough, and that the people pushing these messages are doing it disingenuously, right? They don't genuinely care. They just kind of want everyone to feel the same way they feel. Doing the thing where I ramble again. Okay, so this first episode of She-Hulk is a bit bad. It starts off with Jennifer Walters, soon to be She-Hulk, being belittled by a male coworker. He is condescending and insisting that he performs a closing statement rather than her because he's better than her. We shift then to a flashback with Bruce, now in human form, toting a device he claims helps him regulate Hulk. A random spaceship appears and Jennifer swerves the car. They crash. In the crash, due to his device, Bruce was unable to turn Hulk, which results in him being seriously injured. Jennifer is conscious and also injured and pulls Bruce from the wreckage. In the process, she gets Bruce's blood in her arm and immediately transforms into She-Hulk, where she sprints off into the distance. She comes upon a bar in the middle of nowhere where a group of interesting women and otherwise people throw a series of pronouns at her and prove to be the nicest group of people she's ever met, I guess. Jennifer is waiting outside to leave, only for a group of clean-looking dudes to catcall her. They obnoxiously insist that they are just being nice and give off some very heavy, rapey vibes. Jennifer almost immediately transforms into She-Hulk and prepares to attack them, only for Bruce to intervene. Bruce is now back in his Smart Hulk form, which Jennifer continuously berates him for calling himself smart, even though he is literally one of the smartest people on the planet, I think. Bruce explains that Jennifer's blood is special and he used it to heal his arm. Due to their DNA, they both share some gene that lets them both become Hulk, etc., etc. Jennifer immediately implies that she is better than him, to which Bruce says she is different than him, but she again insists that she is better than him. Now they prepare to train so Jennifer can get her She-Hulk powers under control. At some point, Jennifer is revealed to be completely sentient and does not have an alter ego. Like Bruce and Hulk, she is fully in control. Jennifer eventually is tired of all the training, which she seems to be better at than Bruce in certain areas, and wants to go home. She complains about her student loans and demonstrates that she can control her anger better than Bruce. Her reasoning being that she is catcalled and insulted by men on a daily basis, therefore she has infinitely better control of her anger than Bruce does. Jennifer decides to go home. Now, after berating Bruce for being unable to control his anger, she then proceeds to explain that his life is terrible and he has decades of trauma from loss and the horror that Hulk is, but still somehow insists that he cannot understand her suffering due to her being a woman and him being a man. She then runs over Bruce and they start a fight. She immediately gains the upper hand by copying Bruce's attacks, somehow better than him or something. Their fight stops when they crash and break the bar, and they reconcile over a bag of Cheetos. Jennifer apologizes but still insists everything she said is true, which is like a negative apology. After the flashback, Jennifer once again insists that she was right and Bruce was wrong, just in case the audience forgot what she said a couple seconds ago. The trial commences and is immediately interrupted by some chick villain who I don't know, but she looks like a go-go dancer. What ensures is one of the worst fight scenes I've probably ever seen, including the terrible slow-mo kick thing. Jennifer effortlessly beats her and prepares to give her a closing statement, and that's pretty much where the episode ends. Let's break down some of the things that just don't make sense about this show from the very first episode, but I want to emphasize from the start that there is not a lot to nitpick with the episode because not a lot really happens, right? They're there, the thing happens, they train, she leaves, boom, she's attorneying. It's like, it's very quick. It doesn't feel like it's a whole lot. And most of these things are probably going to be things you already know. Bruce is introduced as having a device on his arm that suppresses Hulk to the point where Hulk cannot help Bruce. Yet at the end of the most recent Avengers movie, I'm pretty sure it is strongly implied, if not outright said by Bruce, that he has in the past treated Hulk like a disease, but he's actually the cure. So it seemed like Bruce understood that Hulk has his own thoughts and feelings, and in most situations, but now Bruce has once again resigned to completely suppressing him to the point where he can't help him in an accident. Now, on the off chance that Smart Hulk means that Hulk doesn't exist anymore, why would Bruce be cutting off his superpower? Wouldn't that open the door to so many evil organizations just straight up shooting him in the back? He's essentially making himself vulnerable to everything, and for what? The reason is probably because the plot needs to happen. He needs to be suppressing his power so that he can get injured and bleed so that Jennifer can become She-Hulk. I didn't like that. It's a pretty trashy plot device. The next time Bruce's device is mentioned, Jennifer is asking him to make one for her so that she doesn't have to worry about the Hulk thing ever again, to which he says that he can't because it's a prototype and it's calibrated specifically to him, so therefore he can't make one calibrated specifically to her. Which is just bullshit, right? That's just bullshit. Again, that needs to happen so the plot can happen, so the show can happen. Jennifer also randomly breaks the fourth wall.
Yeah, about that. It's true. I am a Hulk. He doesn't mean that. Crazy Hulk stuff since. So now my family knows, and Nikki knows, and you know. Basically, I was right and Bruce was wrong.
It is so out of place and makes no sense. Maybe She-Hulk did that in the comics, but very rarely is breaking the fourth wall like a good thing. It's usually looked down on unless it's one of those gotcha moments, you know? I'm pretty sure Deadpool is like one of the only characters that can actually break the fourth wall consistently for the entire length of a movie and it still be entertaining. I just don't know why they had her break the fourth wall in this show. They could have started off the episode with her just heading to vacation with her cousin. Instead, it is like a minute of a dude saying she's bad, and then she talks to us and we rewind. It's like, what's even the point of that? You know, then the training happens, and then she talks to us again. It serves no purpose. It just kind of makes things weird. If you were ever even remotely immersed in a show, breaking the fourth wall usually pulls you out of it. We don't even get to see her telling her best friend that she's Hulk or her reaction because she already knows by the time we snap back to the present again. So we've essentially just kind of glossed over this huge portion of this character development, and it doesn't matter because instead what we got was, now you're all caught up. If it's a consistent feature of the show, then it's just bad. I just don't know why it's there. Now, the titular character of the show, the main face, Jennifer. I don't know what it is with a lot of these woman-led superhero movies, feeling like the absolute best course of action is to have a character like relentlessly insulted by men, then ranting about it like within the first 10 minutes. Wonder Woman, Black Widow, Scarlet Witch, all these superheroes didn't need to have this weird combative dialogue like Captain Marvel and She-Hulk have. It's just off-putting. It makes them almost impossible to tolerate, and you have to tolerate the character in order to want to watch the character. I feel like if they removed her dialogue of complaining about men and talking down to Bruce and replaced it with her actually having a scenario happen to her, it would have been a bit more compelling. Maybe, you know, flesh out her character a little bit so that I understand that she's a person and a thing and not just this fucking thing that is chopsticks and Cheetos and a green person. Instead, I just see a lawyer tell her she sucks, then she's looking totally disheveled, and a group of dudes that look way too clean cut, like way too clean cut to be in the middle of a bar in the middle of nowhere, but also apparently thought this middle of nowhere bar would have an endless supply of chicks. Not only do they leave the bar apparently after like 4 maybe chicks walked in dressed all weird and shit, but they all try to approach Jennifer with this weirdly predatory behavior. Like, it's weirdly predatory. The kind of predatory I would assume you would find in like a romance novel where the main heroine or whatever is like investigator, and then this dude corners her and is just like saying all these really ridiculous things that are totally unbelievable and just not the way people talk to each other. And then like the big strapping cowboy steps in, and he like, you know, shoves him aside, and then he like saves her, and you know, he's like drizzled in like a light sweat. Okay, I'm getting a little too far in there, but you get my point. It just seems like some totally fabricated bullshit, right? Just like, this doesn't happen. It's just not, it's weird. If this was a bar in the middle of LA and they were all clearly wasted, this might have been a bit more compelling. I know abrasive dudes hit on chicks, and it is clearly not consensual, and it's clearly creepy, but come on. These guys at Ideal Sports Bar next to a gas station, they're credited as Skeevy Guy 1, 2, and 3, which essentially means gross or distasteful, but bruh. Casting was just way off on this one. All these dudes are gorgeous, which doesn't justify them being cocks, but my main point is that this was really like putting your character in a very unbelievable situation to overhand your main idea. The least you could do is get some scruffy looking weird dudes to actually make it believable, right? Like, these guys look like they part-time at Abercrombie and Finch and sell solar panels to Midwestern homes in like Eastern LA, okay? This could have been done way better and could have easily gotten your message across and also made Jennifer a compelling, interesting character, right? This is the Bella in Twilight thing all over again. This is something that has always bothered me anytime that I watch Twilight, because my girlfriend just is obsessed with that movie and those movies, she loves them. There's always this scene in Twilight where Bella's like walking alone, and there's this group of 7 or 8 dudes that are just randomly drinking beer behind some warehouse, and all of them decide that they want to collectively run a train on Bella. And they just look like a bunch of bros, like weird bros. But really, Bella in Washington at night behind a warehouse. Really? I'm sorry, I just don't think it's believable. I mean, you know, scenes involving some serious, horrible things have been portrayed in media, and they've been believable, and it makes you angry and like mad that this happens. And this was just one where I was just like, this is fucking goofy. This is just goofy and weird, right? Like the guys, even when she transforms, like they like hug each other and scream, and it's like that kind of diminishes the whole seriousness of your point, right? She's being harassed, potentially predatorily attacked, and then these guys just go like, eek. What the fuck is that? Jennifer, again, just continuously explains to Bruce how he can't understand what she is going through. And then at one point implies that Bruce has gone through decades of trauma. He still cannot understand what she has been through. It is just too much in too short a period of time. Why couldn't she have just been like jokey and like having fun with her cousin a bit before we got introduced to her beliefs that she has to remind everybody about constantly, and her daily struggle that she just pours out of her constantly? Like, it would have been nice to just have like that episode point where you're just like, you're learning who they are and about their life, and then they get their superpowers, you know? Instead, it's just like, boom, superpowers immediately, literally like in the first 5 minutes. Humanized before transformation is usually the key to Marvel's success, right? Think about it. Thor loses his power and has to struggle as a human before he becomes worthy of his power again. Tony is captured and made to forge weapons for terrorists that he has been unknowingly supplying this whole time. Steve Rogers is relentlessly trying to serve his country even though he physically can't. And he time and time again proves that he is morally superior to other people through demonstration, right? He jumps on the grenade. He does all this stuff that he shouldn't be able to do. But he does because he has a heart of gold or whatever the fuck. The whole point is, you know, he was humanized before he became super. Instead, you know, again, we just jump right into it. Boom, she's Hulk and she's good at everything, and bam, 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 lawyer. Now, it was just overhanded and pretty senseless, and people complain about CGI. It's pretty bad for a Marvel movie, but I also feel like they knew they were taking a risk and might not have wanted to stretch the budget too thin. But my main issue is that I just don't care about Jennifer. I've learned nothing about her, and all that she's done is say that she's better at everything and show that she is saying she's better, and the show is saying that she's better at everything. And the first episode is only like 35 minutes long, and 50% of the dialogue is useless or irritating to listen to. None of it really makes Jennifer out to be a better person, but more like just a thing that turns green and sometimes says things. All I know about her is that she's an attorney, allegedly a genius, has student loans, angry at men, and eats Cheetos with chopsticks like some quirky girl on TikTok. It's just bad character development. That's all it is. Now, I do plan to be making a couple more videos. Just been busy with work and school, guys. I'm sure I'm gonna piss off a bunch of Marvel fans that are like, you just don't understand the complexities of the character. Like the whole Star Trek thing again. Star Trek has always been like I don't fucking watch it though, so.
Man, I still go.
Oh my, I just cheated.